Dean Thomas says, I just don't think Leon is, in his heart, a real, true fighter. And I disagree with him. I think it's very disrespectful for him to come out and say this. I don't mind when the older generation tries to educate and mediate and regulate the sport. I don't mind that. But I do mind when they come out and they kind of talk crazy, not for nothing, but Dean Thomas has never been a UFC champion. Let's not have someone who's never even been a UFC champion come out and almost like put himself over Leon in a sense, because it's like, bro, are you saying you were a real fighter? Because if you were a real fighter, what does that give you? Some special badge of honor over Leon, who's actually a former world champion, head kicking Kamaru Usman? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not do that, because Leon Edwards deserves more credit than that. And I'm really not even a Leon Edwards guy, bro. Like, I think he's a snoozer of a fighter. I think he's boring as hell. I think it was entertainment suicide putting him in a main event. I really do, man. I'm not a Leon Edwards guy at all. But you have to give credit where it's due. And for Dean Thomas to come out and say he's not a true fighter, and to go on to mention guys like Justin Gaethje, who's never held a real belt. He held an interim belt, and that was cool, but he's never held a real belt. And then you've got Dustin Poirier to be named. That's who Dean Thomas named. He said both of those guys will go out in the parking lot, and they'll fight you in the parking lot. Dustin Poirier's never held a real belt either. So he names two guys that never held a real belt, and they're saying that they're real fighters over Leon. What does that mean then? I would have to ask, what does a real fighter mean? Because not for nothing, Georges St-Pierre, who in my opinion is the greatest of all time, he's never been in a street fight. He's said that. He's very open about that. I am not impressed by your performance, Matthews, and I have also never been in a street fight. Like, he's never... So what are we talking about? Are you saying that... I don't know. Like, I just don't buy it. I just don't think it's even worth saying. I think this is just something who... clearly, this was via the Paper podcast. Never heard of it, but okay, cool. I'm sure they've never heard of me, so... it goes both ways, but Dean Thomas saying this, is, in my opinion, is a guy who's been out of the spotlight for a while, is a guy who is liking the headlines because he has been in the spotlight now. Ariel Helwani picked him up for an interview, and he did, who did he go off on? He went off on someone. It might have been Bo Nickel. But I forget who it was, but he had another, little outburst like this on another fighter, and it caught some headlines, and I think he's liking that. I think he doesn't like, because he mentioned this as well on Ariel's show, he mentioned how newer fans don't even know about Dean Thomas, and Dean Thomas is a great fighter, dude. Like, if you watch Dean Thomas's fights on Fight Pass, he's got some good ones. This is a guy who's fought everybody. He fought BJ Penn. Like, bro, give Dean Thomas his props too. Like, I'm not here trying to trash Dean Thomas, I'm not. But let's be honest here. UFC world champion over a guy who never touched gold. You're not going to tell me that just because he's a real fighter, that somehow elevates him, or that somehow is a badge of honor. Like, to me, that's like cannon fodder conversation. That's just noise. That's ego booster. Like, oh yeah, but Leon ain't no real fighter. I'll go out in the parking lot and knock someone out, and that's not me trying to do an accurate Dean Thomas impression. I don't have a Dean Thomas impression. I do have a GSP one. I've got a Connor one. I've got a Darren Till one. I got a few, but a Dean Thomas I don't have. And with that said, it's nonsense for him to come out and say this, and I think it's very disrespectful, and I'm not for it. I don't like when the older guys do this. I don't mind when you come out and you regulate, mediate, and there was another one I said, rewind in the beginning and let me know in the comment section below what I missed, but I don't mind that. Oh, educate, mediate, regulate. I don't mind that. because there are a lot of new fans that need to be regulated and educated, you know? But this is kind of just trashing a guy to make headlines. And it's like nonsense trashing. Like what? Just because Leon Edwards doesn't want to get into fights in the parking lot, he's not a real fighter. Okay, then George St. Pierre is not a real fighter. Then a lot of guys aren't real fighters. You know, like I don't know. I think it's a BS, nonsense, disrespectful cat and fodder conversation. And that's my take on old Dean Thomas here. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, whether you agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. Just join the discussion, follow for more, and of course, leave a like if you enjoyed the time spent. Thank you. You are all appreciated.